Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Newsbrowse News broadcast. NPR reports that the United States and Iran have reached a 2-week ceasefire agreement, announced just before President Trump's ultimatum deadline for Iran. President Trump hailed the deal as a big day for world peace, stating that the U.S. and Israel would suspend bombing Iran for 2 weeks. This suspension is contingent on Iran fulfilling its commitment to reopen the strategic Strait of Hormuz for safe passage, a crucial waterway for global oil trade. Following the announcement, oil prices sharply plunged and global stock markets surged. However, Israel quickly disputed that the ceasefire included a halt to its actions against Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon and continued its attacks. Pakistan facilitated the negotiations, with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif set to continue mediating further diplomatic talks. Iran has presented a 10-point peace plan, which reportedly includes its control over the Strait of Hormuz, acceptance of its nuclear enrichment, withdrawal of U.S. combat forces, and the lifting of all sanctions. Separately, American freelance journalist Shelley Kittleson, kidnapped by the Iraqi militant group Kataib Hezbollah, has been released through a multi-agency effort. Dow futures soared by nearly 1,300 points, and oil prices plunged on Wednesday, following the announcement of a 2-week ceasefire in the Iran war. CBS News reports that investors reacted positively, alleviating concerns about a prolonged energy shock that has affected markets for over 5 weeks. Futures for the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 1,267 points, or 2.7%, while S&P 500 futures jumped 2.8% and NASDAQ Composite futures gained 3.5%. Nigel Green, CEO of DeVere Group, noted that markets had been primed for this moment, with defensive positioning and elevated volatility, suggesting a temporary pause quickly releases pressure. Oil prices saw significant drops, with West Texas Intermediate falling 17.9% to 92.76 scores a barrel, and Brent crude tumbling 16.3% to 91.25.3 a barrel. This came as maritime monitoring services showed early signs of vessel movement through the Strait of Hormuz, a key waterway. President Trump announced the ceasefire, stating it was contingent on the strait's reopening, while Iran's statement claimed continued control. Economists had previously warned that a prolonged closure of the strait could push gasoline prices past $5 a gallon, but uncertainty remains about future shipping activity given the ceasefire's temporary nature. City News Everywhere reports a significant shift in global markets following a 2-week ceasefire agreement between Iran, the United States, and Israel. The deal, which includes the crucial reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, has driven oil prices below the $100 mark. The May crude oil contract saw a substantial drop of $17.98, trading at $94.97 per barrel. This positive geopolitical development is expected to trigger a rally in U.S. stock markets as they open for trading today. In currency markets, the Canadian dollar strengthened, trading at 72.08 cents U.S., an increase from 71.91 cents U.S. on Tuesday. Gold also saw an uptick, with the June contract rising $128.80 to reach $4,813 an ounce. The ceasefire comes after a tense period, including a threat from U.S. President Donald Trump to launch a bombing campaign against Iranian civilization. Advocates are calling for long-term stable federal funding to ensure the safety and prosperity of Indigenous women and girls in Canada. Hilda Anderson-Pierce, president of the National Family and Survivors Circle, highlighted the uncertainty of continued government funding, which undermines efforts to address the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. These groups plan to hold a news conference on Parliament Hill, pressing for sustained financial support for vital programs and services. Anderson-Pierce emphasized the urgent need for serious federal action to protect Indigenous women and girls, especially given the increased risks associated with large-scale resource extraction and infrastructure projects. Amnesty International has previously noted that factors like binge drinking and drug use among transient resource sector workers, combined with high housing prices and a lack of childcare, can lead to the exploitation of Indigenous women and girls. The advocates urge the federal government to collaborate with organizations to mitigate these dangers and guarantee adequate access to housing, food, and education. This report comes from the Canadian Press on April 8, 2026, Mindgraph. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.